Last week, we broke down our dynasty quarterback and running back rankings for you all. Now, this week, we are focusing on the pass catchers. Today, our top 40 wide receiver rankings broken down into tiers. As we always do, we start at the top here, work our way from the S tier down to the E tier. And what I like about today's episode, Cameron, is that these tiers are, I don't want to say very flat, but maybe very evenly distributed already in the S tier. 7 different players: Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, CeeDee Lamb, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Maybe a little bit wider spread between the top and the bottom, but all 7 guys you would love to have on your dynasty teams. 2 players I want to talk about in particular. As we always do, we don't have time to cover everybody in these tiers, but I want to start with Jackson Smith and Jigba, because over on Keep Trade Cut, a crowdsourced resource for all of you dynasty players out there, the public has Jackson Smith and Jigba all the way up at wide receiver 1 in dynasty. He is my wide receiver 3. I still have Jamar Chase and Puka Nacua ahead of him. But let's have a conversation here, because I was actually surprised to see that you have JSN as your wide receiver 5.
Yeah, and it really just comes down to, like you said, this is one giant tier. And it honestly, if you've watched our videos in the past, this is very unusual for us. Typically,
Yes.
whenever we do a rankings video, it's 2 or 3 guys. But especially when you look at it this way, if you have any of these guys, your wide receiver 1 in Dynasty, set it, forget it. Give me 3+ firsts if you want a shot at getting one of these guys, right? That they're all in that tier, and they all have something. Maybe other than Jamar Chase is maybe the only guy you can give the nod to, just because we've seen it multiple years. Attached to Joe Burrow, where you're like, can pick a little bit of a hole, not a lot, a little bit of a hole. JSN for me, I trust CD and Justin Jefferson slightly more. More.
We'll get to Jefferson in a moment. He was the other one we're going to talk about.
Slightly more, but also Clint Kubiak most likely gone. Or I shouldn't say most likely. Could be gone this year.
I mean, popular candidate.
Most likely gone for sure next year, as long as things go well. Right. I don't think he makes it 2 coaching cycles with what he's done so far. So that changes it a little bit for me. They've had nobody else in the pass or receiving game. How does that affect JSN? Right. He's the only target right now in a team that doesn't throw the ball at all. So there's just a couple of things. We've only seen it for 1 year of this explosion. Maybe I'm too low. If, like you said, you have JSN at 3. I am not going to argue at all. I could probably move him up to 3 next week, and I would have, no ifs, ands, or buts. And maybe, you know what? We'll talk about Jefferson here in a second. This might just be the homer in me that's putting him over JSN. It might be dumb. You can let me know, but it's like I could, you could just tell me, hey, you have to put Jefferson at 5 and JSN at 4, and I'd be okay. And then I just move on.
Yeah, right. Because what it comes down to, you mentioned with how big this tier is, we are nitpicking from Jamar Chase to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think people would agree Jamar Chase definitely has the most upside of this tier. But if we were to put Amon-Ra in the A tier, everybody would say you're absolutely foolish for even considering that.
Yeah.
But the reason why I do have JSN ahead of CeeDee Lamb still is there's just, as silly as it sounds, because we're nitpicking, 3 more years of runway with JSN than we do CeeDee Lamb. And maybe not necessarily that I'm more of a believer, but I do wonder if this Dallas Cowboys defense ends up improving. CeeDee Lamb still is a incredible dynasty asset, but even with a very good Seattle Seahawks defense, we still saw JSN absolutely dominate as the only receiving weapon in Seattle. It's like Gucci Garrett Wilson, right? Where people are like, oh, he's just going to volume his way to wide receiver 1. Like what you hoped Garrett Wilson's upside would be, Jackson Smith and Jigba just absolutely shattered it, right? So that's why I'm willing to be more optimistic on JSN and still rank him ahead of a Justin Jefferson, because look, it was scary this season. If you were a Justin Jefferson dynasty manager, you're sitting on absolute gold here in Justin Jefferson, a guy who was if he wasn't 1, he was 2 in dynasty rankings last season. But you look at what you get with JJ McCarthy this past season, not great. We don't know what Minnesota is going to do for quarterback competition this upcoming season. What are you doing with him after this year? Obviously, he still deserves to be in this A tier, but if people were to say he deserves to be below Malik Neighbors and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm not going to sit here and deny them that either.
No, I mean, you definitely can't. The reason I just have him higher is I'm just banking on the player of Justin Jefferson. Vikings paid him all this money. They're going to figure out, hey, this did not work last year. It was in the media all year long of this headache because they can't even get Justin Jefferson the ball. He's barely getting 1,000 yards. But we're talking about a guy who's seen 84 plus receptions 5 times in his career, who's seen 1,400 yards 4 times in his career, has seen 7+ touchdowns 4 times in his career. He's on, still on pace for the best start to a career in NFL history. Right? I just want to remind us who we're talking about. And now that's why I understand. If you put him at 7 and you say, I can't handle going into next year with either JJ McCarthy or whoever ends up being the quarterback,
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
I'm going to speak this into existence. I'm going to hate myself for it.
Right. Some people think, best case scenario is Mac Jones next year, right? So if that's where you're at, like, and you're, hey, I got to put him at 7. I totally get that too. That's why we said this tier is so big, because you really can move these guys in any direction within the tier. I'm just going, I think this is probably the best NFL wide receiver in the league right now. That I still have Jefferson there. I'm still going to be confident that he's going to produce, and that's just where that comes from.
So you can go ahead and yell at us in the comments about how wrong these rankings are, or how bad the rest of these rankings are, whatever you want to do. Or if you're like 100% in agreement with something in these rankings too. We always love hearing your thoughts down below, and the additional points that maybe we don't hone in on as much. And you're like, oh, but you got to remember this. We love hearing those from you all as well. Let's jump to the A tier, because again, I think this is a very fair breaking point from the S tier, and then once we get to the B tier, you'll definitely be like, yes, that 100% makes sense. It's Drake London, Nico Collins, Teteroa McMillan, and George Pickens. Drake London I want to start with, because we are potentially going to be without Michael Penix at the start of next season. I have to imagine we're without Michael Penix at the start of next season. His splits with and without Kirk Cousins are concerning. 2025 with Michael Penix, he was averaging 14.2 fantasy points per game. Zach Robinson was finally figuring out, hey, what if we threw Drake London in the slot and gave him easier looks to get open across the middle? And Drake London went to work. Michael Penix goes out. You bring in Kirk Cousins. This was the whole issue last season where Drake London couldn't get it done with Kirk Cousins. This season, he only averaged 6.86 points per game with Kirk Cousins. There's a lot of changes coming in Atlanta. Raheem Morris is out. Zach Robinson also out. They're looking for a new offensive coordinator. I'm worried that, sure, these changes could be good for Drake London. I'm also of the opinion that they could potentially be bad for Drake London as well, because if Kirk Cousins is still in a quarterback, the numbers don't lie. They haven't been great over the last 2 years.
And I think that's the reason the tier break is here as well.
Yes.
You are for sure glad you have one of those guys in the S tier. Once you get to Drake London and below, there's just enough questions to just make you feel a little uncomfortable if this guy's your wide receiver 1, right? Drake London, Nico Collins, for sure. You're like, they're so solid, but there's just enough question marks that you're like you said, Kirk Cousins, is it not going to be great? You got to imagine that they've looked at this team enough, that whoever's coming in has looked at this team enough and gone, all right.
GM change too. I didn't even mention that. Terry Fontenot
out. Kirk, I don't really care how you play. If you're our quarterback, you're throwing to Drake London. Like, we're going to scheme to get Drake London open, because him and Bijan are our best playmakers by a lot. Kyle Pitts, most likely out after the season in Atlanta. He's going to be a free agent. Maybe they tag him. I don't know how, again, new GM, new coach.
Yes.
Probably on his way out, right? So if it's in the passing game, it's him and Darnell Mooney again. You got to imagine that they're whoever the offense coordinator is going to be. We are getting this man the ball at all costs. Like,
yes.
It's him and Bijan, and we're going to run, throw it to Drake London, run, throw it to Drake London. So I'm not overly concerned, but it is enough that I don't feel like I could give him the benefit of the doubt to get him up into the S tier.
The one guy I want to come in here is Clint Kubiak and hit the crap out of his play action with Bijan Robinson in the backfield, Drake London, and hey, Darnell Mooney ain't no slouch running a post route. So if you bring in Clint Kubiak, I think he could potentially be. I don't want to say the answer because the quarterback play still matters here. I don't want to just wipe that away, but he's the one head coach that could come in and instantly I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm good with Drake London. He's here in the S tier based on what he was able to do with Jackson Smith and Jigba and what he was able to do with a healthy New Orleans team at the start of the 2024 season. So, yeah, Drake London's a tough one because I think he's a quality head coach, an offensive system away from being an S tier wide receiver, making the jump that JSN did, but he's also got the floor of being a B tier wide receiver as well. So he's like very tough of like, I think we're ranking him here based on upside. Just like I do think we're probably ranking Tetero McMillan in this tier based on his upside as well. He was a player we talked about being more of a Drake London than a Cortland Sutton coming out of the NFL draft this last year. The NFL agreed. Carolina Panthers take him in the top half of the first round. Based on what you saw this season, I would say it was a relatively successful season for Tetero McMillan. Finished as the wide receiver 25 on a points per game basis, 122 targets, 70 receptions, broke 1,000 yards in his rookie season, 7 touchdowns as well. Again, nothing to slouch at, but let's kind of do like a temperature check here on Tetero McMillan after his rookie season with Carolina Panthers. Do you think he kind of still has this Drake London-esque trajectory in him?
I think he could get there. Right. I mean, if you remember too, Drake London wasn't exactly a hot start for him. Obviously had Desmond Ridder and Arthur Smith, and there was a lot going on in Atlanta during his rookie year.
Yes.
For me, I've said this about Carolina all season. Tet's going to go as far as Bryce Young will take him. I think he takes a step forward this year where maybe he's not quite as dependent on Bryce Young, who did look good in their playoff game. So maybe that does bode well for next year of, hey, now Bryce is ready to take another step forward, or we've reached the ceiling of Bryce Young, similar to like we reached the ceiling of Tua Tagovailoa, and this is it. So that's kind of the question. I do think he's extremely talented. I think, obviously 70 catches, 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns is extremely good. Last season, you remember, I mean, we gave Marvin Harrison the benefit of the doubt, and he had a much significantly worse rookie year than Tetero McMillan did. Obviously, maybe I shouldn't compare it there because it didn't exactly work out great this season for Marv. But yeah, I think coming out, this is what you were hoping you would see from Tet. If you were expecting, like what Brian Thomas did his rookie season with 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns, that just really wasn't in the cards for them this season.
Yeah.
But getting to see this, knowing, hey, we got, continuity moving forward. It's going to be the same play caller, same quarterback. The teams, just made the playoffs, looking to get a little bit better. I like that a lot for the development of Tet and the development of this offense as a whole.
Yeah, and I have to imagine his usage increases next season as well. I imagine you're going to consolidate Xavier Legette out of this offense based on what we saw with Jalen Coker in the playoffs. That's not to say it's not that Legette had that much to go around anyways, but going into year 2, I have to imagine if you're Dave Canales, you're looking at Tetero McMillan and saying, we can do better than the wide receiver 18 in usage. Not that Dave Canales is looking at the same fantasy numbers that I'm looking at, but wide receiver 18 usage on the season. I have to imagine we crack the top 15 with that next year, which I do think opens the door for Tetero McMillan to just like safely be in this A-tier wide receiver. You never want to assume you're going to get a Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle kind of rookie season out of these wide receivers. No one was expecting that for Tetero McMillan. So the fact we cracked the top 25, looking forward, I think we're safely looking at Tet McMillan as top 20, top 15 wide receiver moving forward. So I think based on what we saw his rookie season, you can have confidence in that. I just briefly want to touch on George Pickens, who is a free agent. But look, if I'm George Pickens, I want to do everything I can to stick around in Dallas with this offense attached to Dak Prescott.
Here we go.
So I look like George Pickens. I'm not going to lie. He might actually be the player you want in this tier. Is that a hot take?
I think he's got the highest upside. I mean, what we saw from week 7 to week 13, the dude was unbelievable. I mean, he was nonstop, 168 yards, 82 yards, 78 yards, 79 yards, 144, 146, 88 yards. I mean, it was just highlight play after highlight play after highlight play for George Pickens. So, yeah, I do think he has what it takes. I mean, to move up into this S tier, which I did not think he did. I was completely
S tier's a crazy
wrong.
statement, but like, I'm not going to say it can't happen.
He's 24. I mean, he gave 1,300 yards this season. Yeah, 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he reaches it in Dallas, right? Because he's always going to be behind CD. But he's pretty comfortable A-tier player then moving forward at only 24 years old with the flashes he's had. So yeah, I can't believe how much it made me eat my words, but he's definitely shown that he can hang with the big boys.
Again, and I don't want my statement for CeeDee Lamb to go exempt here for George Pickens. If this defense does improve, I imagine Dallas doesn't find themselves in as many shootouts. But I'll tell you what, if they don't sign another running back this year, and all signs point to we just want to put the ball into Dak Prescott's hands, who's to say they're not just going to chuck the ball around the yard still and play still a Cincinnati Bengals kind of offense where all they want to do is just throw the ball under Brian Schottenheimer. Before we get into this next larger B tier, and I say larger, it's relatively the same size as the S tier. If you enjoy Dynasty Fantasy Football content, a fantasy football connoisseur in and of itself, or you just like talking about the NFL draft, the NFL rookies, this is the place you're going to want to be this offseason. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell as well, so you'll be alerted when all of our newest content is up. 2 videos a week for you all. We'll be doing some best ball drafts this offseason as well. We cover a multitude of different fantasy football formats for you all. So if you're a fan of fantasy football, it's the place you want to be. We'll provide some entertainment for you all along the way as well. B tier, Garrett Wilson, Rashee Rice, Chris Olave, Rome Odunze, Jameson Williams, Brian Thomas Jr., and Emeka Egbuka. I want to start with Rashee Rice because everybody's going to look at this and scream that we are a bunch of idiots for not putting Rashee Rice in the A tier, if not the S tier. I'm a little bit surprised to see how harsh you were on Rashee Rice in your ranking, because I still have him top 12. I do think like we have to look at the year-long outlook, and it has to mean something, because as much as it is a forward-looking game for Dynasty, we're without Patrick Mahomes for, I don't want to say probably not the entirety of next season, but a very large chunk of next season, and it's going to take time for these two to gel back together. It's going to take time for Patrick Mahomes to recover 100% as well. So just like, let me in on the process of your ranking here for Rashee Rice.
So he's going into the last year of his contract, and he still has criminal proceedings that have to happen for his hit and run. He just had something come out on Instagram, potential abuse from an ex-girlfriend. So my worry is just all character related of, does Kansas City, I know, I mean, right, Tyreek Hill had his own stuff when they kept him around.
But sounds familiar for a Kansas City wide receiver. Yikes.
But are you willing to give a guy like this a big contract? Because he's shown, hey, when I'm on the field and I'm healthy, I'm extremely talented.
I'm a top 5 fantasy wide receiver.
Exactly.
Not that he negotiates that in his contract, but for fantasy purposes, he's putting up numbers.
But I have all this extra stuff going on off the field. How does that factor into where he's going, right? Is he the same out of the Kansas City system? And again, I could be blowing this out of proportion in my head, just have overthought this, moved him down to the B tier. If you say he belongs in the A tier, you're probably right. I just am being a little more pessimistic of, there's just a lot of things coming up right now. Right before he's supposed to be signing an extension. That makes me a little worrisome of, hey, are they going to be willing to give him this money? I don't know how this whole like post on Instagram by the ex-girlfriend works out, but yeah, that's really what it comes down to. And then, like you said, this season, he's not going to start with Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes might not be back till mid-October. Right. So you miss for 6 to 8 weeks without Mahomes. How does that make, this offense did not look good this last season. The second Mahomes went down. So what do they do at the quarterback position? How does that all work out? Obviously, no Travis Kelce, so they'll have to rely on him more. But yeah, I'm just factoring all that in. Still a top 15 wide receiver, probably should be higher. based on performance. If I didn't have all those off the field things, if Mahomes is here, he's at the top of the A tier for me.
Sure.
So that's where he flies in, right? If there's no question with that, it's just all the extra stuff going on.
He goes A tier. I see. I would have him S tier with
yeah,
with
and
Mahomes.
that's probably even right. Probably, yeah.
But I get it. But I get it. You can for all the wonderful things you can say about Rashee Rice, you can point to at least 60% other things of okay, but which I completely understand. And we do have to account for volatility in Dynasty as well, knowing when the best time to get out on players is, when the best time to buy in on players is, because you can play a very, very short game in Dynasty, or you, if you're rebuilding, you are definitely playing the long game as well. So Rashee Rice is just one of those assets right now where could he bring you future, like immediate success? Absolutely. Could he bring you future success down the road? Certainly. But both of those are in question for very different reasons right now. And so he just becomes this like volatile asset that you don't entirely know what to do with. But again, my opinion, he belongs in the A tier, all things considered, but I get how you can lean more pessimistic on him as well. I want to jump to like a few other question marks in this tier because I think at this point, you know what you're getting with Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. Lord, they just need to find this man a quarterback. That's what the solution is here. Roma Dunze, though. Roma Dunze was looking like the call of the century. Not really, I can't say call of the century. It was looking like a phenomenal call at the start of the season. When we did our redraft content, I just was gushing over Roma Dunze. He was my biggest obsession of the offseason to start the year. I'm thinking, yes, holy cow, we absolutely nailed it on Roma Dunze. And then we just kind of fell off a cliff here over the back half of the season. We kept getting these 2 to 3 week flashes of Roma Dunze being this top 12 fantasy wide receiver, being this alpha in the Chicago Bears offense. Were those flashes enough for you to maintain confidence in Roma Dunze going into next season? And I also want to recognize the Bears, I don't want to say could have a lot of moving parts this offseason, but in year 2 in Ben Johnson's offense, I'm kind of wondering if they consolidate this even more.
Yeah, I am ready to say he's the wide receiver 1 in this offense after this season. I understand Luther Burden had a little bit of a flash at the end of the year. DJ Moore caught the game-winning touchdown, sure. But if you watch DJ Moore play, he is not the DJ Moore of the Justin Fields era any longer. And I think that the flashes were good enough. It is crazy. The first 4 weeks was awesome. And you're expecting, we have an early bye. He's going to be more integrated, right? Because Burden wasn't back yet. Loveland wasn't breaking out. DJ Moore wasn't playing great. And then it just kind of slowed down from there. Still had a couple pretty decent games. So it's not like he completely fell off the map. But yeah, I still have confidence in him. He's still only 23 years old. He's still a top 10 pick in last year's draft.
Yeah.
This offense is only getting better. Obviously, we didn't get to see what any of it looked like. He didn't play after week 13, so dealing with a foot injury in week 13. So there's a lot that kind of went into it. But yeah, I'm still confident enough that as far as, especially as these next 4 players go, looking at them compared to Roma Dunze, Jameson Williams, Brian Thomas Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Roma Dunze is the guy I have the most confidence in out of those 4.
I just do wonder if with the surge of Luther Burden at the end of the season, Colston Loveland too, holy cow, his back half of the season and first round of the playoffs, that dude can ball, as we know. I just wonder if the Bears look for ways to free up some future cap space, maybe. DJ Moore, what you and I just talked about it. If he's a post June 1 trade, he's only a $4 million dead cap this year. Yep. So do you try and recuperate any sort of draft capital for DJ Moore? We got DeAndre Swift, who's only I believe he's only a $1.3 million dead cap hit as well. So I just can't help looking at both of those and thinking, if you've got known talent in Roma Dunze, known talent in Luther Burden, known talent in Colston Loveland, known talent in Kyle Monungai even, is there a way you consolidate this offense, bring in maybe a few cheaper options, whatever it may be, and Roma Dunze is still your alpha wide receiver 1? We get, again, more of a Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta kind of Ben Johnson structured offense here. So I'm just curious to see what the Bears do this offseason. The flashes from Rome were enough for me to continue maintaining my belief in him. But that's also not to say, hey, you know what? There are going to be weeks where Roma Dunze probably gives you a goose egg and it's a Luther Burden week. Roma Dunze could give you only 4 fantasy points one week because Colston Loveland drew 10 targets, caught 8 of them for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? We're going to have these ups and downs in the Bears offense, but I'm just still too much of a believer in the talent of Roma Dunze to be out on him or to have like a overabundance of skepticism for him going into the 2026 NFL season. The last player I do want to talk about in this tier, so many question marks around Brian Thomas Jr. Ty and I decided that's his song. He is like the forbidden conversation around these parts because after they brought in Jacoby Myers, and now we got to talk about Parker Washington with him as well. It is baffling. It is absolutely baffling. The cliff that Brian Thomas Jr. has fallen off this year. We're having this conversation. It was you, me, and Ty in our group chat. We're having this conversation as we're watching the Jags and Bills game unfold this past weekend for Wild Card Weekend. And you just have the utmost confidence that teams are still going to love Brian Thomas Jr. based on his talent. And I'm just like, I'm not sold. Other teams are interested in Brian Thomas Jr. And if he maintains, if he's still a Jaguar come the start of next season, what I saw from Parker Washington, what I saw from Jacoby Myers, the pecking order of this offense, got Travis Hunter, who's on IR as well, will be eligible to come back at the start of next season. Where are you at on Brian Thomas Jr.? Because I need some convincing that Brian Thomas Jr. is still this like B tier level dynasty asset.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that he faced a lot of injuries this season. And obviously the season got away from him. He never looked right. And so I still think 1,282 yards, 10 touchdowns this rookie season means something. Obviously, if we come back and they're playing Travis Hunter, a 75-25 still offense to defense, they have Parker Washington and Jacoby Myers playing on the offensive side of the ball with Brian Thomas, then yeah, you know what? I am a little bit concerned, a little bit more, but I do think they're going to shake it up. Don't have to, I guess they could run it back. Are going to shake it up a little bit. I think Brian Thomas, though, is going to emerge as a bigger part of this offense come next season if they do decide to keep him around. I don't know. I watched him this year and watched him last year, and he looks like 2 completely different players. And I guess I refuse to believe that that's something that's going to stick, right? That all of a sudden what we saw rookie season is just completely gone. I think if anything, this is the anomaly, and we're going to get back to what we saw his final season of college, and then last season where he's the most explosive player on the field, where he can outrun everybody, where he's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger. I think we're going to see that again this next season. And so I have a lot more confidence moving forward, but I do understand, this was a very scary season and a very scary end of the season for sure.
I need him and Trevor Lawrence to get in. I mean, they were just never in sync. And he clearly, after getting shooken up on that hospital ball, was that preseason that happened?
Mm-hmm.
And ever since that, it was just like scary hours for these two. So I become brunch buddies, become tea time buddies, whatever you got to do to get on the same page. Like, go ahead, give us a narrative to lean into this offseason like we did with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp in previous years, right? Where it's like these two are hanging out. They're trying to get on the same page. They're doing whatever they can to build that trust and relationship with one another, because I'm worried. If Brian Thomas Jr. is still a Jaguar next year, we're talking about him as the wide receiver 3, and you are sitting on like debatably an absolute landmine on your dynasty team right now. So I'm nervous. I want to hold on to his rookie season and believe it's good enough. But this year, has almost done irreparable damage for at least the immediate future, in my mind.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing Pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the higher on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all 3 of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of Pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you put your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show.
Let's keep it moving here now and move on to the C tier. A lot of talented players still in the C tier. I mean, the Dynasty wide receivers are, I don't want to say kind of loaded. But it feels like compared to the running backs, there's a lot more quality. Not without their question marks, though, which we'll talk about in this tier. Starts with T. Higgins, A.J. Brown, Ladd McConkey, Marvin Harrison Jr., Zay Flowers, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Waddle. T. Higgins and A.J. Brown, feels like we know what they are. I'll be honest, I don't want to have the A.J. Brown conversation. I don't want to have the Philadelphia Eagles conversation. I think it is the dumbest conversation out on the internet right now. I get why people want to move on from Nick Sirianni. I get why people are saying A.J. Brown just might force his way out. But it's like, people of the Twitterverse, we have to start thinking more critically than A.J. Brown wants out, he's going to get out. Nick Sirianni doesn't do crap. He deserves to be fired. It is so much more deeply intertwined than that. And I don't want to turn this video into explaining that for the people of the internet. I think the simple solution in Philly is you kick Kevin Patullo to the curb. The worst offense coordinator in the NFL by far this year. I get you can blame Nick Sirianni for holding on to him for so long, but my goodness, is it the worst thing in the world that Howie Roseman, the best GM in the NFL, has to go out and hire your coordinators for you, and your head coach can go ahead and focus on putting some dog into this team, which we know Nick Sirianni has done in the past. He's been the heart and soul of these aggressive Philly fans. Is it the worst thing in the world? No. You won a Super Bowl doing it, so shut up and quit whining. Sorry, I needed to go on that rant. That was actually very therapeutic for me, in case you can tell. Anything you want to add on A.J. Brown? Sorry, I'm just like, I'm done with the conversation. I think he's going to be an Eagle next year. Contractually, it literally does not make sense, no matter the genius of Howie Roseman, to trade him.
Yeah, I mean, he's extremely talented. So if anything, buy low, I guess, right now on A.J. Brown, or sell high if somebody thinks he's the wide receiver one with Drake May and is going to put up, 1,700 yards next season. So I guess you can go one way or the other, depending who's on your league.
Would you do a straight swap, Zay Flowers for A.J. Brown right now?
Ooh.
Zay Flowers just put up the most mid wide receiver 7 finish I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe he was a top 10 wide receiver this year.
Honestly feels like Devonta Smith's wide receiver 9 finish a couple years ago.
Right.
Especially because I have Zay Flowers from week 2 to week 13 never put up over 12 half PPR fantasy points and had 1 week with negative points. Like that.
It was the wide receiver scoring was just it was down this year, believe it or not.
Yeah.
It was down.
I think I stick with AJ Brown still.
If I'm getting AJ Brown,
yeah,
I would trade Zay Flowers.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take it.
I think I would too.
So.
Even with the changes in Baltimore.
If I'm like rebuilding or I don't think I have a shot in the next 3 years, then yeah, maybe I do trade AJ Brown for Zay Flowers. But
sure,
if you have a championship window within the next 3 years, then yeah, I'm going AJ Brown.
Sure. Let's talk about Ladd McConkey. He was actually the player that I wanted to start within this tier because at the end of last season, he was a guy we were putting into the A tier. He put up a phenomenal rookie season. He was giving you top 15 numbers come end of season. We're all looking at it like, hey, you know what? He's Justin Herbert's guy now in this offense. And once this offensive line gets healthy, look, Ladd McConkey is going to be the top 10 dynasty wide receiver, if not a top 7 dynasty wide receiver. No question. The problem is, holy cow, Ladd McConkey stunk. Not only was he not being featured at the start of the season, you got about 4 to 5 games in the middle of the season where, okay, we're getting back to some normality here. We're at least getting top 20, top 15 finishes from Ladd McConkey. But then over the back half of the season, I don't want to steal your thunder, the stat you put in the doc here, but oh my goodness, 8 for 197 and 1 last year in their playoff game against the Houston Texans. But over the last 7 games this year, he couldn't even get 190 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. Incredibly bad. So was it solely an offensive line problem this year? Was it a Keenan Allen addition problem? Is it more? Is it both? It's not Justin Herbert, because you look at everybody who studies film that I respect greatly on Twitter. What was it? Nate Tice of Yahoo Fantasy Football put out a tweet of like collapsing pocket is like the understatement of the year when Justin Herbert is out there playing football. So what is it? Is it a 1 year flaw? What are we chalking this up to, basically?
Yeah, I don't know. Did you see the stat about quarterback pressures compared to dropbacks for the Patriots and Chargers last night?
No.
So, or I guess this would have been 2 nights ago. So,
by the time you listen to it, yes, yeah.
The answer is not 30, but how many dropbacks do you think Justin Herbert had if the Patriots had 30 quarterback pressures?
How many dropbacks did Herbert have?
Yep, the
And
Patriots had
30,
and the Patriots had 30 quarterback pressures last night.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'm confused by your question. Is the number greater?
Okay. Yeah. So they had 30 pressures.
So I would guess. Okay, if the Patriots had 30 pressures, how many dropbacks did Justin Herbert have total? I without context, I would tell you, holy cow, he must have had at least 45 dropbacks.
Yeah, 31 dropbacks.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I know the answer is substantially less than 45, but not having
31.
If I wouldn't have watched the game, it's incredible.
30 pressures. I mean, that's what he's been dealing with all year long. The good news is he was without 2 stud tackles, right? They are going to be on the team next year. So you do know, hey, it is going to get at least a little bit better because they will be there. It's just, I don't know. And maybe he should be the same spot Brian Thomas Jr. is. The more I think of, like, maybe it's me just being silly of giving BTJ a little more benefit of the doubt and not giving it to Ladd, because the same thing happened. New players come in, offense still looks good enough, that they made the playoffs. And Ladd had a longer stretch, but I think it hurt more with Ladd because it felt like, oh, he's disappeared. And then it was like, oh, he figured it out. And then completely disappeared
gone.
Again.
Completely gone.
Yeah. And I mean, over the last, 7 weeks, like we said, 43 yards was the most receiving yards he had in a game.
It's just embarrassing.
I mean, just gross. And so it's.
And again, I think that's an offensive line.
Yeah.
Result. I think that's what that is.
I think he's another I'd probably buy low on.
Yes.
John Harbaugh was about as uncommittal as you could possibly be on Greg Roman being the offensive coordinator next year.
Yeah.
So you got to imagine they're going to move on from him because they had no rushing yards. I think there's a stat that I saw that Herbert is the leading rusher in almost 50% of his career games so far. He was the leading rusher last night for the Chargers again with 50 yards. It was his first playoff game where a Charger had over 50 yards rushing, and it was him. So that should tell you all the help that he's been getting moving forward. But yeah, I got to imagine you give him the benefit of the doubt here. But again, like Brian Thomas Jr., very scary to go out and try to make a trade for Ladd McConkey right now.
The one thing we didn't talk about, I wish I would have brought this up when we talked about Amari Hampton in our running backs episode last week, and I do think helps for Justin Herbert as well. The Chargers have the most effective cap space in the NFL this offseason, nearly $110 million, $109.989 million in available cap space. You know who's a free agent this offseason who would really help along the interior of their offensive line? Tyler Linderbaum.
Yes.
They will win any bidding war to get Tyler Linderbaum on their offensive line. So not only will you have 2 great tackles on the outside, you'll have one of the best centers in football up the middle, assuming the Chargers go ballistic after Tyler Linderbaum, which, if you've been wanting to see how Jim Harbaugh structures his teams, structures his teams, you'll know they'll go absolutely nuts for Tyler Linderbaum. You finally start to solidify that guard center guard combo as well. And I think magic could happen for the Chargers. I think they'll be one of the, I know they made the playoffs, but I think they could be one of the bigger, can I call them a bounce back team next season?
Yeah.
I think they could be even better than they were this year is what I'm trying to say, despite Justin Herbert's poor performance. So yeah, I think Ladd McConkey is a great buy low, and I'd be doing anything I can to get my hands on Amari Hampton going into next season too. Let's talk about another big question mark in this tier. I do think that is unfortunately Marvin Harrison Jr., Lucas. it was just another disappointing season. You get the injuries mixed in as well. Yeah, Kyler Murray, who's probably not around next year. You've got a head coach that's out. Monty Austin-Ford is still around as the GM. What are maybe the best way to look at this is what are actually the things that could raise his rank this offseason or lower his rank? And then maybe on like a different scale, what do we actually need to see from him next year? Because we're ranking this guy as an A-tier player. Okay, you know what? Didn't have a great year one, saw some flashes, but you know what? If he gets on the same page in year two, maybe he'll move from the B tier up to the A tier. Obviously, that didn't happen. That's why he's in the C tier. So what are the things this offseason that you think, let's start with raising his rank. What are the things that could happen this offseason that you think would bring him up a level in dynasty formats?
I need a new play caller. I mean, that's plain and simple.
That's
I mean, if we don't get a new play caller and somehow they decide we're going to run it back with Mr. Drew Petzing, then we're in trouble. Then I don't have much confidence. We're going to need that. Obviously, he's got to be healthy. And you really don't want to see him bring in any more weapons, especially with the way Michael Wilson was playing, because you bring in another wide receiver and you got Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, and another wide receiver, then all of a sudden it starts to feel really, really crowded. So I think a new OC and just not bring another wide receiver would honestly probably keep him at his rank. I think anything else, if those two things happen, would lower him. I don't really think that anything this offseason is going to raise him from where we're at until we see it on the field at this point.
I agree. Yeah, I think there's room for me to have more optimism going into next year. But if Drew Petzing is still the play caller, which I'm surprised he and Jonathan Gannon weren't let go at the same time.
Yeah.
We're stuck here. We're stuck here at this point. I like Jacoby Brissett. I really do. I think he'll be a great bridge quarterback for the Cardinals this upcoming year. But then you got to figure out who your quarterback is.
Yep.
The Cardinals still have to be bad enough of a football team to have a shot at one of the top quarterbacks in next year's draft. I'm not saying they're Arch Manning candidates. We have no clue, if Arch Manning is going to elevate his play, or if he's going to even be a top 15 pick in the draft next year, right? Like, I don't want to make this an Arch Manning sweepstakes debate. But like, again, the long-term road here for Marvin Harrison Jr. is like, it's foggy.
Mm-hmm.
It's currently under construction, I would even say. Like, you can't even move forward with Marv until you know what happens in 2026, which just makes him this like anchor of a dynasty asset of he's kind of sinking you, but you also don't know what to do with him because it could be very pretty on the other side, or the road could continue to be absolutely awful going forward as well. So I just don't want to extrapolate much more on Marv because it seems like we know the talent is there. We've kind of conduced that Drew Petzing is a lot of these problems. Kyler Murray won't be around. We saw Jacoby Brissett. They're fine letting him throw the ball 40 plus times. Drew Petzing was fine letting Jacoby Brissett throw the ball 40 plus times. There's just a lot we don't know, and we need to see how this offseason unfolds before we can really actually come to a more conclusive decision on what to do with Marvin Harrison Jr. Even though we know the upside he has, just like we do with Vlad McConkey and Brian Thomas Jr. Last player in this tier I want to talk about. Hey, Luther Burden is here, by the way. Didn't read him at the top because, wouldn't you know, I forgot to put him in the graphics. So he popped in right after we talked about Vlad McConkey. Just like the season, he pops up at the end. Luther Burden closed out the season on a heater, man. Week 15, 7 targets, 6 receptions for 84 yards. Week 16, he was injured. He didn't play. But then week 17, he get 9 targets, 8 receptions for 138 yards and a score. Important to note, Rome Odunze was out from week 14 on at that point. But where does he rank in the Bears pecking order here? We talked about Rome Odunze, how you and I still think he's probably the lead candidate to be the wide receiver 1 at the start of next season. And did you actually see enough from him at the end of the season to trust him going into next year?
I think I did, because it wasn't just, hey, he put up stats. It was put the ball in this guy's hands and he's electric, right? Yeah. That's what we saw of. This isn't just, we schemed him open. It was, if he's got the ball in his hands, he's making things happen. So I really think that that's the bigger part too of we got to finally see who Luther Burden is. And I imagine this next week against the Rams, we're going to see a little bit more of who Luther Burden is in this offense. I just don't see it being DJ Moore as the wide receiver one. I'm not saying DJ Moore doesn't, I think he might be gone, but even if he isn't, I think it's going to be pretty clear next year that it's Rome, Colson Loveland, and Luther Burden ahead of him. And maybe that's enough to kind of bog you down on Burden, but especially from a dynasty perspective, Burden's 22. We talked about, JSN, Brian Thomas Jr., Lad McConkey, Chris Olave, even Roma Dunes, all these guys who are ahead of him weren't exactly like killer their second year.
No,
Drake London was the same. I mean, he started to break out a little bit, but wasn't. George Pickens wasn't right. So we don't need him to be awesome to still be worthy of this price tag at 22 going into year 2. But there is also that potential that he could, or especially by the end of the year, injuries happen, something like that. We every time you say, well, I don't want to bank on that. JSN last season.
Right.
DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, both missing time. All of a sudden, we have JSN starting the breakout, and then the next year it comes to fruition. So that's why you bet on a guy like Luther Burden right now. You saw the flashes. Obviously, if you're going to go try to trade for him, you're paying up a little bit. So maybe you wait a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah,
it's calculated bet that you're making to pay his price tag right now.
Yes. But I think he's worthy of being in the C tier for sure, despite the minimal sample size that we did see from him.
Yes, because you're 100% right. The jump that he can make could make him, he could be where Garrett Wilson is in these rankings come the end of next season, if not in the A tier, right?
Yeah.
He's a guy where you could be looking at him and saying, yeah, you know what? I have got a extremely solid wide receiver 2 who can give me wide receiver 1 numbers. Should the contingencies fall right on any given week. So yeah, we knew getting connected to Ben Johnson was going to be probably the best possible outcome for Luther Burden out of this draft. And it took a while to get there. Completely understand that. But in dynasty formats, you are like thrilled with the price tag you got on Luther Burden in your rookie drafts because he was getting bogged down based on the amount of mouths there were to feed in the Bears offense. And the good head coaches, the good offensive coordinators just figure it out. And that's exactly what Ben Johnson is. The D tier is basically the fact that dynasty rankings always favor the youth. It's Jordan Addison, Ricky Pearsall, Travis Hunter, Michael Pittman Jr., Michael Wilson, Jaden Higgins, Xavier Worthy, and Christian Watson. Look, the problem with this tier is that we could spend an overabundance of time breaking down so many players in this tier, when the reality is Jordan Addison, he's young. You have question marks at the quarterback. Ricky Pearsall, he's young. You have questions about if he can stay healthy. Travis Hunter, here we need to pause and have a conversation. Landed on IR, missed the back half of the season. All of a sudden, you bring in Jacoby Myers via trade. You all of a sudden have Parker Washington looking like $10 million out on the football field, maybe more. You've still got Brian Thomas Jr. and his upside. You got a Jaguar secondary that needs help, though. They tried this experiment of playing him on both sides of the ball this year. You got to open the can of worms on the conversation. Does he play wide receiver for the Jaguars next year? I mean, you have to crack the can open here at some point and ask the question based on what we saw from the Jaguars over the back half of the season. Ty and I, again, we had this brief conversation in our group chat. Ty and I still think he does, but only at probably not even a 25% clip. Probably 10 to 15% clip, and you play him 85 to 90% of the time on defense.
Yeah, it is definitely worrisome right now if BTJ doesn't get moved, Parker Washington doesn't get moved. If at best he's probably wide receiver 4 next season. At best. And like you said, he's going to be playing part-time corner if he's doing that. He's going to be the second slot option behind Parker Washington. He's extremely talented, so that's why he's still here, because the upside is he could easily, by the end of the year, be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. He could. I mean, he has the talent too. We talked about at the beginning of the season. That doesn't go away, but he's also got the talent to be the cornerback one on this team, which, like you said, if you got 3 wide receivers that you trust, that might be the better option. So it'll be interesting. Obviously, getting hurt too of, hey, year one, we're already hurt, and you're expecting him to play both ways. Can he really keep that up from a longevity standpoint? We only saw 1 game. Obviously, it was, only like 8 weeks into his rookie year, so you don't know. But yeah, there's so many question marks on him, and he could completely fall off dynasty, formats after this season. He could shoot up and be in the B tier after the season. He, to me, has the widest range of outcomes of any player we're going to talk about.
Would you want to go invest in him right now?
I mean, no, because I feel like if you have him on your team, you're sitting there like, I got to treat him like he's going to play wide receiver.
Right.
You can't trade him away.
Not
like
thrilled I spent the 104 to 107 on him. You're
Yeah.
not thrilled on that. Are you trying to get anything back on your investment? I'm just like, as someone who has Travis Hunter, I'm not trying to give people ideas because I look, I don't want to sell Travis Hunter for 35 cents on the dollar. But like, am I curious is it worth getting rid of him now for an early second round pick or like a potential running back that I could use on my team?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm willing to listen.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is do you want to hedge your bet now or do you want to take the chance? Like,
right.
It's kind of like having a lottery ticket, essentially.
Oh, it is. It is. Travis Hunter is the ultimate lottery ticket. It is.
Do you want to cash in right now, or are you okay with it being worth 0? Because it could be worth 0 in 2 years. Like, is
Travis Hunter the Bill Crosby merits of wide receivers?
There you go. Might be. Send your seconds now. But yeah, I have him in a league as well, and it is terrifying. It is terrifying of what the heck do I do, especially because in that league I took him over Tet. So it's like, where am I at? I was bought in a little too hard. So I don't know. It's these Jacksonville wide receivers have bamboozled me all year. Maybe I should not be the one to talk about them.
Michael Pittman is kind of the, I'll say, anomaly of this tier because it's like we talk about here. right. We talk about like youth, and then it's like, oh, Michael Pittman's 28 years old, and he's just kind of the misfit of this tier because there's a lot going on in Indy. I don't really want to break down Michael Pittman Jr. because he kind of feels the same as all the guys in this tier. Michael Wilson is the one that might even stick out like a sore thumb, though, because he is only 25 years old. You obviously saw what he was doing without Marvin in the lineup with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. The question with him is what kind of an asset do you actually have here? Because he is entering the final year of his deal. You've got the coaching turnover here. If it's Drew Petting and Jacoby Brissett again, and Marv's out there, even with Marv, he took a step back. I think that's the question. What kind of an asset do you have in Michael Wilson under dynasty teams?
How can you not trust him? I mean, it's like, I know Jacoby threw the ball a lot, but it's not like Jacoby's some elite quarterback.
Look at the tape for Michael Wilson. Phenomenal tape.
He just went out there and dominated over and over. We talk about how bad Drew Petzing is as an offensive coordinator. Didn't matter for Michael Wilson. I mean, the dude was just phenomenal to end the season. He ended the last 5 games, had 6 touchdowns, yards on top of yards, caught everything. Yeah, I mean, he's only 25 years old. It is a little shaky, but I don't know. He kind of feels like one of those guys that was down far enough to start his career that, it's kind of like, it's gross.
It's a incredible hole he's got to dig himself out of.
Right. You know what? Maybe mid-second, I'd take Michael Wilson for sure. For sure would take Michael Wilson after this.
Dart throw second round pick. Yeah.
Like
go see if you can make some gold here.
Yeah. Like, it's just,
especially in this draft class.
I mean, because it was week 11 on, he had 1 week where he wasn't 12 plus half PPR fantasy points. He was wide receiver 2 in half PPR fantasy points over the back half of the season in points per game. I mean, he had more than JSN. Only Puka had more. So, yeah, I get it. It's not a sexy name. Hasn't been a sexy start to his career. But, man, he turned it on at the end of last season, and I'm willing, with the upside he showed, I'm willing to buy in on that for sure.
He was doing everything that we wanted Marvin Harrison Jr. to be doing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that feels impossible to stomach,
Mm-hmm.
is that we potentially got Marvin Harrison Jr. in the form of Michael Wilson, and we might end up getting Marvin Harrison Jr. in the form of Michael Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
or excuse me, we might get Michael Wilson in the form of Marvin Harrison Jr. That's what I'm trying to say. So it sounds crazy. It sounds dumb. I get we don't have a sample size with Marv to compare it to really with Michael Wilson, but holy cow, based on what Michael Wilson put out on tape, out on the field, you can't go back and watch that at the end of the season if you're the Arizona Cardinals and say, flash in the pan, we don't have anything here.
Yeah, no kidding.
You got to get him involved
7 weeks
next year.
8
right.
weeks.
He's a guy where if I think he rightfully belongs in this tier, but
yeah,
who's to say if Marv doesn't come out and fall on his face again in year 3 and Michael Wilson balls out and is looking for a contract? Who's to say they don't swap places next year? It feels crazy to make that statement, but I'd be curious if you're a Michael Wilson manager in Dynasty to hear what your thoughts are down below in the comments section. Would love to hear from you all. What you're doing with him, if you're holding on to him, if you're looking to try and trade him for a pretty penny while you can. Really, really curious to hear what people think down in the comments about Michael Wilson. The last tier, Cameron, is kind of the players you rank ahead of the aging players because their time is running out. DK Metcalf still only 28, but obviously this past year with the Steelers was an absolute roller coaster. The ups and downs were immense, to say the least. It was from goose eggs to 25-point weeks in the blink of an eye. Devontae Adams, top 10 fantasy football wide receiver this year. Problem is, he's 33 years old. Matthew Stafford is like, I don't know, if he's got to go through immortal chamber treatments at the start of each season, that's he's just battling father time at this point.
Yes,
before he hangs it up.
He's winning, but he's battling hard.
He's winning right now, but father time's going to land a liver shot at some point, and Matthew Stafford's going to be down on both knees, out of breath. Terry McLaurin, obviously you have the whole. He's 30. 2, you've got the Washington Commanders situation with Jane Daniels. What in the world is going on there? Do we get a resurgence to his 2024 season? How much time do we have left there, etc.? Cortland Sutton, Alec Pierce, and Wan'Dale Robinson are the 2 youngins of this tier. Okay, maybe I want to pause though and say, is there a player in particular that you feel most drawn to in this tier? That's a very artistic way to say which player do you actually want to talk about out of this tier. Because if I'm being perfectly honest, if I'm a competing team right now, I'm trading almost any player in the D tier to go get Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
That's how I'm looking at this tier. Is these players are for competing teams, except for Alec Pierce and Wan'Dale Robinson, who just have other question marks in and of themselves. But for these older players, if I'm a competing team, I want Devontae Adams for at least 1 to 2 more years.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you need a 1-year guy next year, Devontae Adams is the way to go for sure.
Yes.
Terry, DK feel very similar type of players. DK just happens to be a little bit younger. Sutton has, been pretty consistent. This is who I am.
5 for 60 and a score. You want that week in and week out? I'm your guy. And I'm like, honestly, I think Cortland Sutton should probably be closer. I get he's older than a bunch of the guys in the C tier, but honestly, I think if people wanted to say, wow, really you got Cortland Sutton below all these youngins, I would say, hey, I'm not going to fault you for that.
Alec Pierce and Wan'Dale Robinson are going to be very interesting conversations this year. Both free agents. Where do they end up? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Is there a spot that they could go that you're all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, sign me up? Is Alec Pierce the new Rashid Shaheed in New Orleans?
The Colts for Alec Pierce. That's the only spot.
It's what it, yeah. So does Alec Pierce become the new George Pickens? Do they
wherever Clint Kubiak goes, I want Alec Pierce to go.
There you go. Is he a Falcon? Opposite of Drake London?
Get Darnell Mooney out of there.
So it'll be interesting with those two. Again, I don't know if there's enough a place, especially for Wan'Dale, that I'm like, yes, I'm gonna move him up a tier.
Yes.
Alec Pierce, even if I can't think of anywhere he goes right now that I'm like, all right, this elevates him to the next level.
Again, Shane Steichen in Indy is the only one I'm interested in, but even then you got to figure out if Daniel Jones is going to be your quarterback in time.
Exactly. So a lot of question marks with those two, but that's why they're in this tier with, you got a couple question marks who could be decent, and then some old guys who, you maybe got 1 to 3 years left with.
the competing teams. They're
Yes.
they're the ones who are interested in those first 4 players. So we'll put a pin in it there. I think that's a fair summation of this last year of it's not worth deep diving any of these guys entirely, but for the sake of rankings to further explain the difference between the D and E tier, it's probably necessary. Again, if you made it to the end of this video and you haven't hit that subscribe button on our channel yet, it's the best and easiest and most free way to support what we do. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell as well, so you'll be alerted when all of our newest episodes are up. And for even those of you on the podcast feed as well, same way, hit that subscribe button on the podcast feed as well, so you'll be alerted when our newest content is out. If you want to follow our other socials as well for more exclusive content over there, not just podcast regenerated content over there, FF Fellas over on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. If you're a YouTube truther through and through, I completely get it. I really do. We serve you all as well. Fantasy Football Fellas shorts on the red play button app. I'm Matt Lucas Wenzel on X. If you want our personal content, Camlaw FFF for Cameron. We'll be back later this week. We'll do the second portion of the pass catchers. We'll do some tight end rankings for you all. I know that'll be Cameron's favorite episode. Later this week is breaking down tight ends. We appreciate you all. Stay safe. Stay healthy. We'll see you later this week. Deuces.